Hi, welcome back to Enjoying the Word. And we're thinking about studying the Bible, and we've been thinking about the process that you go through as you come to a Bible passage. Now, do you remember we were in John 12 in the initial videos that we made about the look stage, as we were thinking about this progression? When we were thinking about the look, it was focused on John 12, the triumphal entry. I did a video, I'll link to it, where we considered the learn to kind of pull all that together. We just did it in one video just to make sure we didn't lose that passage completely. And now we want to think about this final pair of elements, the love and the live. And we're just going to, again, pull them together in one video focused on John 12. We've got other videos that go through these in more detail and think about them, but they're looking at other passages. And so we wanted to make a complete set with John 12. Now, love and live, remember, these two words are pushing us to the right response. What should a passage stir in us? Primarily, it should affect our hearts. Primarily, we need to be looking for the revelation of the person of God. In this case, it's a gospel, so it's pointing us straight at Jesus. The spotlight is on him, so we don't have to think too hard. But we do need to recognize, okay, what's my heart response to this revelation of God in the person of Christ? And then what's my expected lived response? Okay, so one comes before the other because, of course, all that we do flows out of what we love. So it's no good just jumping to a to-do list. It's much healthier to look at a passage and to say, okay, what should my heart's response be to the person that I'm seeing here? And then what is this passage urging me to do? Is there any instruction? Is there any direction, expectation? Is there any implication? Okay, so let's look at the passage again briefly. Of course, the big focus is the identity of Christ. Okay, so as Jesus is coming to Jerusalem, this language, we've noted it several times, but they are using language that's explicitly messianic. This is the one who comes in the name of the Lord. This is the King of Israel. That's huge. It's huge that they're saying it. Now, I suppose the question is, did they really get it? Well, we'll come back to that in a second, but there's a richness to this because all the way through the gospel, Jesus is who he is, but people don't necessarily get who he is. Here we've got a crowd of people celebrating him, and they may be getting caught up in the heat of the moment. Maybe they're getting carried away because he's from Galilee and so are they. Maybe they're getting carried away because the crowds feed crowds, and we've got several crowds at work here, those who've come to the feast. And then on the next page, we've got those from Bethany who are witnessing to what Jesus has done with Lazarus a few weeks before. And then you've got the crowd going out to meet them. And so there's kind of a crowd building a crowd. So maybe the people are getting caught up in this. But the important thing is, as far as we're concerned, we're sort of watching on, or we're, if you like, joining the crowds. And the important thing is that what they're looking at needs to be what we're looking at. We need to see Jesus for who he is. And here he comes humble. It doesn't say humble in this gospel, but there's a humility tone. There's a regal tone. Certainly in John, the kind of royalty of Jesus is emphasized. And so we want to be looking at him and appreciating him. They didn't fully grasp it, but we should, as readers. We're supposed to be grasping what's going on. And so even though the disciples didn't get it, later on they got it. And we're in the later on, right? We're in this phase after Jesus is glorified. We should be understanding what's written about him and what was done to him. So there should be a richness of response in our hearts as we see the events of the Passion Week unfolding. And of course, the contrast to the religious leaders who felt like they were losing control is the emphasis at the end of the passage. So what's the response of our hearts? Well, it should be love. Love for Jesus, appreciation for who he is and for what he's gone through, and just a heart response that's genuine. Now, what do we do with it? How should we then live as a result of this passage? There's no direct instruction here. There's no kind of stated, therefore go and do likewise. So what do we do? Well, I suppose it's worth noticing that often, or noting really, in this passage, often it gets kind of preached quite strongly as a rebuke. Because this crowd welcomed him, and of course on the Friday there was a crowd standing before Pilate saying, crucify him, crucify him. So it's very easy to read this and sort of tut the crowd and think, oh, we mustn't be so fickle. Actually, as we've seen on our way through with the map and so on, this crowd probably isn't the same crowd that were crying, crucify him. That was a crowd, a small crowd of temple workers, first thing Friday morning, being agitated by their leaders and told to shout what the rest of them were shouting, follow the lead of the leaders. Those people are completely away from this. I suppose, if anything, those are these people, the Pharisees and the workers that they agitated later on Good Friday morning. And so we don't need to make a big deal out of the fickleness of the crowds, because I don't think it's the same crowd. But similar to that, perhaps we should recognize that these people had struggled to grasp who Jesus was, and there's a good chance that many of these people didn't grasp who Jesus was. They were just getting caught up in the hype of the moment. And there is a danger of that for us, isn't there? That we can get caught up in the hype of church or in the hype of the faith of others. It's important for us to see Jesus for who he is, to really understand him, and to sort of come into this category up here, to be like the disciples who, in light of the cross, in light of the glorification of Jesus and the revelation of God's heart through him, are fully grasping who he is and what he's been through for our sake. And so there's no live implications here that we should ride donkeys or that we should wave palm branches or any of the sort of to-dos that you could spot in here. The real issue is Jesus, right? Who he is, what he went through, and that should stir within us that response of love, and we should live that. I think that's what you want to do with this passage, right? You want to live out your love for Jesus consistently, not getting swept along with one crowd or another, but consistently living out your response of love for him. And you also, I suppose it's an application, you want to keep reading, because there's this implication that there's tensions building. You don't want to stop at John 12:19. You want to keep on going and see Jesus continue to reveal the Father's heart as he heads for the cross. So there you go. I hope that's helpful. Just thinking through applications or the implications of the passage. First and foremost, our heart's response to the person that's being revealed. And then what does it mean to live in light of that? I hope you're enjoying the word. Thank you for watching these videos. And please do share them with others who might appreciate them too.